Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, usually Tuesday nights at around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and then it also gets uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, just in case you missed the stream, and it's also on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do the social media doobly-doo thing and leave that like, rating, follow, subscribe, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, at least from a more mental standpoint. I don't really make any money off of this. But that aside, today, I am back with Jay Stewart, and we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to kind of rack our brains around the lore that we know of Digimon and kind of make some custom Digimon cards based on the lore that we know, and we're going to challenge ourselves by doing something Bandai hasn't really done before. So, yeah, I think that's going to be pretty fun. Whether it's going to be a single Digimon or a full evolution line, we're going to decide that on the fly. We don't have any of this prepped, but that's what makes it fun. And we do have a little bit of, like, metadata. It's, like, pre-BT21, brought to you by Eagle's Nest. They are doing proxy tournaments, so we could kind of slightly gauge based on their early results on where the potential meta can go, because BT21 is just around the corner. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we have the question of the week. So with episode 100 in the bag, we're going to do something a little bit different with the question of the week, and it's going to go back to how it used to be, where you, the audience, whether you're an active listener or a commenter in video form, you, the audience, are going to be able to ask us the question of the week. So, we're going to leave it to last week's episode to give us the question for this week's, and then next week's question will be based on this week's question that was given. So that's kind of how we're going to go, just to try to up the interaction between us and you, the listeners. So last week we had a pretty interesting question. Let me bring it up real quick. That was this one. Comrade? Oh, there we go. Okay. I was like, how do I pronounce that name? So
I would have guessed that.
Yeah, so this week's question is brought to you by Comrade. So Comrade asks, looking at the current meta and looking at the current set of meta decks, and it looks like the worst position deck is Galaxy. Other than the fact that it's super efficient, I'm sorry if my reading is super choppy. I probably should have blown this up. I'm having a hard time reading tiny text. Other than the fact that it's super efficient, there is nothing that does anything, or there's nothing that it does equivalently broken. Just ends in a boss monster with a slew of possible boss monsters that it can go into, like Invisimon, Medieval Gallantmon, Hexmon, Mirage, and so on. Beyond that, the needing training, it's one stack out and efficient. The deck seems to struggle. Is it better than you think? And is the efficiency just that good compared to other decks? So basically the TLDR, I know I completely butchered that, is Galaxy actually good just because it's efficient? Even though it could use a whole bunch of different top ends, it doesn't seem like it's topping that much. Is it actually that good? Or, is it actually that good? So, How many times have you played against Galaxy, Jay Stewart?
I technically played against it once, and that was at the Iowa Store Regionals. And I will say that matchup was kind of a struggle for me. So I will go ahead and state Galaxy is probably not the easiest deck to pilot and everything. Just because the best way I can explain it, it is the most Yu-Gi-Oh deck right next to purple in the Digimon TCG, then that is Yu-Gi-Oh. Because this deck is like kind of the one of the weird functions of you need to have your pieces, and once you have your pieces, you need to know how to use your pieces. And it's just kind of one of those most generic. I don't know if generic's the right word. Sorry, it's. I think when the creators created this deck and this archetype, they did not think about too specifically the key wording of certain cards of how they could get used and abused by other cards, like the what is it, the so and what's that, the red tamer that's got the two red tamers on it,
Sayo
that's their
and
memories.
Ko and Sayo.
Kello and Sayo, thank you. Like that one card alone, it's the fact that it allows you to de-digivolve and then go. I can't remember. I think it's like very specific about you de-digivolving from the Life Fang or the Nightclaw trait, and then you can evo into whatever, like just a whatever trait, or it's the other way around. It's one of those two.
Yeah, you have to
But
be
I
coming
know,
from a Nightclaw and Light Fang to go into whatever you want.
yeah. So it's like just that one tamer alone. Like they were probably thinking in the mindset of, oh, this card, this isn't gonna get abused because why would de-evoing yourself and evoing for free into whatever else you want be just generically good? And the fact that the Dusk and Dawn deck, it is just filled with cards like that. Like, and like I said, you have to know how to pilot the deck. You need, it's like very reliant on you doing everything right. And once you get your line up, set up, and everything, yes, like your top end is very generic. It's the Invisimon that could de-digivolve. It's the Hexablow that could bounce tamers, stop you from suspending. Like, just Hexablow alone. Like, the amount of times you tuck your top card underneath to Evo again and everything, it's just really absurd of how many cards you get in your stack to really abuse Hexablow's effect as well.
There's multiple layers and levels to unpack with the deck. It isn't necessarily the hardest deck in the world to play, but it's not the easiest one either. You really just have to understand how to like trigger your effects. But I do think EX5 was one of the worst design sets in the entire history of the Digimon trading card game. That set, along with like BT7, has had some of the most bans and restrictions coming from it, like from a specific single set, more than any other set in the entire game. That really goes to show how much of a miss in terms of card design those two sets were more specifically. EX5 also had Anubismon, just as an example. It's where Leviat's coming from. Like, it's still having a very negative impact on the game overall because of just how poorly implemented and thought out its cards actually were in the grand scope of, game design and game balance. But that aside, as far as what the deck is actually doing compared to the rest of the game, it's the meta. Like, yes, the meta stands for most efficient tactic available, but here's the big problem. Why would I waste my time playing any other blue deck if the whole goal is just to get up into the level 6 as quickly as you possibly can when the Galaxy engine exists? Like, going all the way up into from a rookie to your mega level for effectively one memory is borderline unmatched by the majority of other decks. And like, yes, there is a handful of decks that are able to keep up with it, but that's why those decks are also meta, is because, hey, I can go from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat, and what's making Galaxy so strong is the fact that it has two colors that it's leveraging on. Yes, it does have some slight consistency issues because of that, but what it makes up for in search power, it makes up for in draw power, because you're drawing every time you're digivolving. So it's just like, okay, digivolve from level 3 to level 4. There's one card draw. De-digivolve back down to a level 3, go into a level 4 for free. Well, there's another card draw. And then digivolve from a level 4 to a level 5, another card draw. De-digivolve into another level 5 for free, another card draw. So basically just from that basic line of action that they're going to be doing in most variants, you already drew 4 cards off of just digivolving. So the deck is still relatively consistent because of that. It's like why X antibodies were so strong when they first came out, is because digivolving on top of the same level for nothing nets you an extra card draw, which makes your decks more consistent, at least like during that time period. There was the leverage of Cool Boy, which was, that was a very powerful card, it's probably still as powerful. We just don't use it as much because we'd rather have more instantaneous consistency factors that help the whole deck as a whole rather than this one particular spot in the combo. Where sometimes Cool Boy might not actually be doing anything if you ever miss a step, which is the, like, I guess in quotation marks, balance to it. But the way the Light Claw and Night Fang engine is designed, you're not really ever missing a step unless you're actually missing the next evolutionary piece, which half the deck searches for the engine parts anyway. So, yeah, like, you have consistency on top of card draw, on top of search engines, and the hardest part to find is going to be the level 6s. But part of the reason what makes Galaxy so strong is the fact that it could use a wide variety of top ends, and because it's so fast, most of the time it's leveraging its speed to try to floodgate the opponent out of playing the game. So it's just like, cool, turn 2, I raise out, do my thing, go into a level 7, or not level 7, a level 6, floodgate you out of the game, and then proceed to win because you can't play the game. And then the second you set up a second body, things get exponentially worse. So yeah, it is a incredibly powerful deck, probably still one of the better decks, just because there's still not a lot of things in the game that are designed to be able to handle the same level of speed that deck is. And like, that deck already has had multiple pseudo nerfs because the other tamer, the blue tamer, that had a whole bunch of choice restrictions because, again, it was just very poorly designed and thought out on how this card can be interacted in a generic way when it was supposed to be more archetypically locked, and it wasn't. So I hope that gives like a greater explanation as far as like why Galaxy is still good. And the only reason why Galaxy isn't good isn't because of like the deck being bad all of a sudden just because of power creep or whatever. It's because people are testing different things because they're bored utilizing the same deck for a year and a half at this point. It's like, I'm just bored. I want something different. That's why Levia kind of like comes and goes, where it's just like, oh, Levia was so broken. And then we stopped playing him because we found something different and fun and just as broken. And then when that got nerfed, oh, Levia still was fine. Sure, I'll go back to Levia. Because now I have a fresher take on it with different matchups. So, yeah, I mean, it just ebbs and flows.
Yeah, you can even take a look at, like, back in BT8 with Blue Hybrid. Like, you know, Blue Hybrid was really powerful, really good in BT7. Once BT8 came out, you saw Blue Hybrid kind of die off. But the moment, I think it was EX1 or one of the EX sets came out, maybe EX2.
Yeah.
Yeah, EX2 came out. Everyone realized, hey, wait a minute. Blue Hybrid is actually really stupid good still to this day. So why am I actually playing these other decks when I could play this when no one is expecting to play it right now? Play against it right now. And They kind of just came back and swung in. And that's when Bandai kind of went, yeah, we're going to need to come in and we're going to go ahead and hit this now. Which is why we saw the Tommy hit way back in the day.
Yeah, it was just to try to curve things and prevent future problems, which is why a lot of people still don't like the Jet Sylphie hit. But that's because in Japan, their BT10, they were still playing with yellow hybrids. and they just keep swapping out the level 6, and that was a huge problem. But that goes to, like, that kind of goes to show a big difference between, like, the designer and balance team back then versus now, because back then they were trying to actually prevent and stop some of these hyper generic cards from being this powerful, splashing everywhere, actually limiting deck design and deck diversity. And now it seems like we're just okay with it, because like I literally have zero reason, if I'm playing a blue deck, to not play Galaxy Engine versus any other blue deck, because what's my blue deck's top end still gonna be? Invisimon, Hexablaumon, because they're still just hyper generic and good enough to want me to run it. So it's just like, you could even see that leaking into other decks like Imperial, as an example, where they're running those cards as well over their own native engine. Or not like their engine, their native top end.
In archetype.
Yeah, they're in archetype top end. Why? Because the fast, easy Floodgate is just good. Telling your opponent that they can't play the game because I'm a faster deck than you to get up into a level 7 is insanely strong. Which is why when I went to Nationals, I managed to beat every single Galaxy deck because I was playing Floodgates that they could not play around. So that gave me the edge and leverage to be able to beat them, because they were trying to go faster than me into a level 6 to Floodgate me out of the game, but I had a level 3 to Floodgate them out of the game. So I just had to see my Floodgate, and it was easier to get on than their level 6. So that's unfortunately the dynamic that we find the game in on a macro level. Like, it's not specifically just this, it's everything. Because you look at Sakuyamon. Why is Sakuyamon doing so well? Same exact reason. I just go into a level 7 that floodgates the opponent out of the game, and because they're floodgate out of the game, I win the game. By turn 2 or 3. That's the game.
Yeah. Like, literally just watch the Worlds, like, live stream that they had and everything, where it showcased, like, the Galaxy deck and also the Sakuyamon deck. You will find out why we placed those decks as high as we did. Because just those two just those two two matches showcase why those decks are as powerful and deserve the higher placing that they do. Especially like what I said last week too and everything. When it comes to the Galaxy deck, is you could just keep running the same bottom engine. It's just whatever new stuff comes out, whatever new blue top end, whatever new red top end that's just generically good comes out, that's something that the Galaxy engine can always use.
Yeah, the problem is the engine itself being that efficient and allowing you to use like a lot of very powerful cards very easily, hyper generically, and like, yeah. But I know last week we didn't exactly do the tier list justice. I think we definitely could have done a better job. There was a lot of decks that we left off, but again, we were kind of just working with the small scope of data that we had access to, but it just is what it is. So
yeah, because I think the deck that took second place in that Eagles, that's probably a deck we probably should have definitely included on the thing. If anything, I would think the deck that took second place, that should definitely have been a 1.5.
Yeah, like there's a lot of really strong decks, but basically, based on the tier list last week, if you didn't see that episode, the unfortunate reality is if you're not tier 1.5, you're probably struggling to be able to get into tops. Like, I've calculated and done enough and looked at enough, like, large event data throughout the entire history of Digimon to know the trends. And, like, a lot of public perception on tier listing is kind of skewed. And, like, all data is biased. It's just how you utilize that bias, I guess. And the bias that I'm under is if a deck basically tops, like, less than 5 times when a lot of other decks have had good representation and whatnot, that means that the deck is very clearly not as strong as it seems to be. So it's just like Rabbits as an example. Everyone, like, Rabbits will sometimes, out of like 80 topping lists, Rabbits will get 1 topping out of 80. And it's just like, can I really consider rabbits that competitive if it only showed up here once? I generally don't think so. And so like that's a deck I would probably like say is tier 2. Whereas you have a consistent pool of 5 decks, that's what I would say is tier 1. And then the 1.5s are the stuff that's showing up less frequently, but still frequently enough. You could just play with the numbers. It is whatever you want to label it as. But that's just the reality of the situation is most metas, the top decks are hyper condensed between usually 2 to 5 decks. And then just outside of that scope, at least in Digimon's case more specifically, you usually have a nice little pocket of like 5 to 10 extra decks that are able to do well, but not top as frequently as the top tier ones.
And then the other thing you have to consider too is like how many players are actually in the events and everything, and when even some of these events happen. Because, like take JP for example. Japan players, they typically like to play the newer decks over the older decks, even if the older decks are still relatively good. For example, it doesn't necessarily mean that the older decks are bad. It just means they kind of prefer to play a different deck. Probably something they were just like, oh, I'm tired of playing deck Store Goromon, so I kind of want to play this new Chronicles deck or something.
Right. And we generally pick up on that, but now that we're unified, we don't have that data to look at to see what Japan was experimenting with. So we're kind of experimenting all on our own. So that kind of brings us to the fact that, speaking of experimenting, Eagle's Nest hosts weekly events, and we actually do have a tiny bit of data that we could actually go over. So I'm just going to be pulling that up right now. We don't have deck lists for anything, but it's just some very early data. It doesn't mean a whole lot as of right now because, you know, we're still in a testing phase, but this kind of shows what people are thinking about, what they're looking at, what's already positioning itself to do well. It's only 30 players, which I would label that as still like a small-ish event. It's probably more along the lines of mid-size event because it still was at least 5 rounds. Small events I probably would just label like the 12 and under or the 16 and under. So most locals are small events. But this is basically like an online locals. It's a webcam locals as it says. So it's a little bit easier to have a slightly higher player count. As far as what ended up winning this event, it was Armor Rush. Again, don't know the exact list, but considering they had Magnamon X as a separate deck, it was leveraging and leaning more towards actual Armor Rush. Utilizing the new Vmon, the new Davis, probably the new the new BT21 armors. So that's what ended up winning the event. Jespon came in second. Cross Hearts came in third. Hybrids, Red Hybrids, came in fourth. Virus Imperial came in fifth. Royal Knights also came in fifth. They were tied for fifth in terms of placements. Then Hunters and Imperial, Blue-Green Imperial, were tied for 7th and 8th. So that's essentially like some early data standings. And yeah, it kind of makes sense in terms of where and how and why some of these decks would be doing so good. So again, we don't have deck lists to actually infer and see what their spicy tech is and what they're incorporating. So all we have is just this as conjecture to look at. But it shows that last season's top decks are still good. And we do have some new toys that are going to be coming into the format that are going to be able to shake some stuff up.
Yeah. I will say, like, even though, like, the Armor Rush doesn't show off that Magnamon X, I still think they are most definitely using, like, the Magnamon cards and everything. They just wanted to showcase more of the newer cards, because if you take a look, like, fifth place we see Royal Knights, and then if you look at the other side event, they also have Royal Knights, but they use a different card. So I still think that Armor Rush most likely used Magna X.
I would be
My
hard
personal
pressed.
opinion.
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to think that they didn't use it. Like, I
It's still good, and
Yeah.
you've got a lot more powerful cards to help Magnamon X now.
Right, because you have still the Magnamon, like the security Magnamon. You get a new Magnamon that can help control the opponent's field a little bit better. And it's basically doing the inverse of the BT8 Magnamon, where instead of buffing yourself, you're debuffing the opponent's stuff, which is equally as good. Then you have the promo Flame Dramon that's still an insane card. That card's so good. It's disgusting how good it is, and it's sad that we don't get the reprint any sooner than October.
Well, October/November time period, whenever they actually ship it out.
Right, because Bandai Premium be Bandai Premium. I still think that they did stores a dirty by making that type of product Bandai Premium. But, again, qualms aside, the fact that we're getting it as a reprint is very nice, at least. They need to do some more of that, considering some of these promos, they're absolutely ridiculous. They should not be as expensive as they are, and that only goes to gatekeep players out of actually playing the game rather than, enjoying it. So, Bandai, get on reprinting more promos more often and faster. Please. I don't want to spend $100 on a single promo to build my deck. That's, like, positioned at tier 2 at best. I'm like, come on. But, anyway. So, that's kind of where things are currently standing. I know the regulation battle is upon us. I had mine already. So my store had theirs scheduled a little bit earlier than some of the others. The event is held from like the beginning of April all the way up to like end of May, I think. So some of people's will be 2.5, like mine, and then some people's experience might be BT21. So I had the 2.5 experience, and from what I could say, and what I took, low to the ground hyper aggressive is probably the best thing you could do. That's why Armors is absolutely insane, because in slower formats with less options and less removal, let alone good removal, it's just very hard to deal with Armors coming in, swinging potentially multiple times, and not dying in security. So you're going to have to get rid of that body potentially 2 to 3 times, depending on what's underneath it. So, yeah, Armors is looking to be very strong in that event. The decks that I beat in order to take first place at mine was Ghosts. It was Machines using Jumbo Gamemon and a lot of the Invisimon stuff. So, like, Blocker, Reboot, play Digimon out by card effects, that whole shebang. Because the Tamer... God, I'm blanking on its name. But the Invisimon Tamer, the Liberator one. Putting sources under Jumbo Gamemon for if you swing, then Jumbo Gamemon can spit out the source is kind of nuts. I'm not going to lie. And then the other deck that I beat was Fishes. So they were trying to leverage like this cute pseudo infinite combo between Regulusmon, Ibidramon, and the new Metal Seadramon. So like the idea was they swing with Regulus, spit out Ibidra unsuspends Regulus. Regulus swings again, eats up the Ibidra, spits the Ibidra out, and it kind of just keeps doing that over and over again. So it was cute. But again, lower consistency, more setup, that's harder to do. That's why hyper aggressive decks like the Armor Rush deck I took, I was using a blue base for jamming, And then I was playing a whole bunch of source stripping shenanigans to stop their ability to actually block, spit out sources, do whatever. It just worked. That's all I can say. So feel free to look forward to your regulation battle. I was looking at the BT21 stuff, and it really doesn't seem like you get that many crazy things. I think like the best thing you get from BT21 for the regulation stuff, which is the Popper event this time around, is the War Greymon. That card's nuts.
Are you talking about the starter deck or the promo one?
The promo. I think like the because I did a whole stream on just regulation battle deck building of some of the new stuff that we had that Japan didn't. And like adventures you could build, it seems cute, but I think like out of BT21 specifically, the War Greymon looks very good. So that lets you use a lot of the Greymon engine cards, and he also has a play cost reduction ability built into him, so if the opponent's going too wide, now you have 2 ways to use him. Like, it's just a very strong card for a uncommon. So, that's kind of my experience. Not anything too crazy. Biomon promos, whatever. Edamon promo also is whatever. Like, it's not supposed to be a hyper-competitive event. And it felt good to play slower-paced Digimon, even though I was playing an aggressive deck. It wasn't like a crazy deck by any stretch of the word. It was just a somewhat solid deck.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not able to play in that event just due to scheduling, but I know if I was, I would actually probably be considering Cross Hearts because there is a lot of like non-rare cards for me to actually play, like, because like I think in the 2.5 we got a blue tamer and everything, and even the red tamer, so that aren't rare, so they should easily work with the deck. And we do have a lot of level like cross 3, cross 4, and I think there's even a cross 5 from 2.5 that would work with the deck and everything, just kind of cross rush them.
Yeah, there's cross 4, cross 5, and cross 3. It's the good cross 3, the bad cross 5, and the awful cross 4. But at least you have something to work with. And then, like you said, you do have a couple of different tamers. You could run the Nene from BT19. You could run Taiki, and you could run Kiriha, so you have different options to pick from as far as tamers go. You got a good amount of search power because the deck has some decent built-in card draw and some searching. It's got a lot of good aggression because you cross with Shoutmon and everything has rush, basically. Like, it's a very, very good build for a lower powered event. And the cool thing is there's not a lot of floodgates to actually stop you. And not a lot of people are going to be playing floodgates because of how slow, like how much slower the format is, doesn't really feel like it would require you to play floodgates. Because not every color has good memory boosts. Not every deck has insane memory efficiency. Not every deck has high levels of consistency. Like, it felt good knowing that there was, I guess, flaws, so to speak, in quotation marks. I guess balanced through deficiencies is probably the best way to put it. But yeah, so feel free to look forward and be excited about yours. It definitely is going to be a really fun really fun event just to spruce up how we play Digimon, because sometimes the main competitive format can be exhausting, to say the least. So, yeah. With that, I guess we could move on into the main event, which is building out cards. So, I don't know exactly how strong your Digimon lore is, Jay Stewart. But what are you? We'll start with you and then go to me. What were you thinking about? Like, if you want something in the game and you have the lore knowledge to be able to bring what makes that aspect of Digimon exciting to you into card form, what would it be and how are you doing it?
Yeah, so there's one there's one particular, like, I played a good majority of the Digimon video games, like maybe not the one where the Digimon had swords or Digimon World 2, so to say, but I've played a good decent amount of them. And there's one particular video game that stands out that which is always something I kind of don't understand why they never uh made a set theme around it, but that would be the Digimon World DS. And there's one particular boss monster from that, and that was Chronomon. Chronomon, like, for the entire video game, was kind of hyped up to be like a god at D&T that you were trying to rescue, or if I remember correctly. And when you went up against it, it had like a presence. It was like the first time it was like I really had to think about what I was doing, because Chronomon has two modes. It has a holy mode, and then it has its DM, which according to the thing is called destroy mode. And weirdly enough, Chronomon actually has, based on its two modes, actually works with two current decks that are out right now. So its destroy mode actually works with Nightmare Soldiers because it's part of the Nightmare Soldiers family, weirdly enough. And the holy mode actually is a Wind Guardian. So I think what is it? The Wind Guardians doesn't have a boss monster, so to say.
Yeah,
So
right
it would
now
be
they're level
really
7-less.
So it'd be really cool to see Chronomon be that Digimon for it. And I can easily see this Chronomon holy mode be like a green yellow, because it's kind of holy. It's like a healing kind of Digimon. Like, you can make a whole thing about like just recovering with it. You could do like a bowing kind of thing, like all the Digimon respecting it, like fearing it, like kind of forcing it to suspend and stun, kind of like a Quantumon does, or something like that. Would be just really powerful for it. And its destroy mode, from what I remember, a lot of its attacks actually are just like kind of, how do I want to say this? Like there's no way to actually do these attacks in the card game, but like there's like a poisoning, there's a paralyze, uh,
Well, so
like
paralyzed could
draining.
just be stun locking. So,
Yeah,
like,
like it has like a lot of his destroy mode attacks are just kind of like stunning or punishing or something like that. So like either giving like the Winged Guardians like a alternate mode, kind of like the what is that Quill Digimon from the mobile app. Can't think what it is. Like I
Rasenmon?
know there's like, yeah, Rasenmon. I know he has like a Fury mode and everything too. You could
Yeah.
do that with him. You can make the DM. You can make him another new level 7 for the deck to even use. Because like I said, it's a Nightmare Soldier in the family, according to Digimon Wikia. And you can just make him kind of like this in archetype ruin mode for the deck if you really wanted to some shape, way, or form.
I could see that. I didn't finish Digimon World DS. I'm ashamed. I should. Um, but I didn't get that far. I finished Dusk and Dawn. Love those games. But yeah, so I don't exactly have as much experience with the hype build up around Chronomon. But essentially, like, the core idea, so I guess I'll do what I'll spoil what I want to end up doing. I want to do Diaboromon X Antibody and his line,
Oh,
because it's literally three
yeah.
cards. So like, as a base example, you have Caramon X Antibody. This is coming from, I believe, the Chronicles manga.
Yes.
And Caramon X Antibody basically kind of functions similar to Caramon. It was just a very hungry devourer of data. So in the manga, it was just running around basically eating a whole bunch of data, and the protagonists were trying to stop it. And it ate so much data that it warped Digivolved into Diaboromon X Antibody. So it just completely skips stages. So if they were to implement that in the card version of Caramon X, they would probably have it have a warp ability. We've only seen them do that multiple times already, where it's just like, if the opponent has a level 6 Digimon out, you could Digivolve this Digimon into Diaboromon X Antibody from your hand for a cost of 4. Usually that's like the running rate when it comes to warps. Or they could change the condition to where if the opponent just has a Digimon on the field, you could do whatever you want. Just the idea is to make it flavorful and thematic as far as why that ability is on the card based on the lore that we're driving it from. So, like, it could have an inheritable ability that's going to help boost up Diaboromon X and, by extension, Ogudamon X. Because Diaboromon X basically fuses by force, not by choice. It basically eats all of the 7 Great Demon Lords, and then because all 7 Great Demon Lords are in one entity, and Diaboromon X Antibody is an X Antibody card, that's how you get Ogudamon X Antibody. So, like, you could have something where Diaboromon is either A, eating specifically Demon Lords and have a deck centered around it working in tandem with the Demon Lord deck, or because it is literally a 3-card package between Caramon X, Diaboromon X, and Ogudo X. Or you could have it work with Diaboromon and be like, okay, it just needs to eat X amount of level 6 Digimon, whether that's yours or the opponent's, because, again, Diaboromon also likes to spawn tokens, so it's not unreasonable for you to think that you're going to have enough tokens on the field to be able to eat and then Digivolve into Ogudamon X Antibody. So, like, that's just an example on how, without getting into the nitty-gritty, how the lore kind of works its way into card form. Whether that's actually going to be balanced, that's up to the balancing team to then figure that out, whether it's like, okay, maybe this might be a little too strong, but again, the offset of that, because you always need to have checks and balances. If you don't, that's a very poorly designed card in my perspective. But you need to have the checks and balances where it's just like, Diaboromon needs to eat, let's just say, 7 level 6 Digimon that are either on the field or in your raising area underneath one of your egg. You could word it however way you want, but whether the fact is you need to have the 7 in order for that card to basically get a free, you can make it a free evolution as long as it's attached to eating the 7. So I think like that could be pretty fun and interesting of kind of card design to mess around with, because interacting with the breeding or raising area might be something that Caramon also can consider doing. So that would be something to leverage on, because in Chronicles, they're trying to interact with their raising area more specifically, at least the cards that we have. So they could design Caramon to try to disrupt the raising or breeding area more directly. And I think like that would add a new layer and dynamic to the card game that we haven't seen before, give the card unique fun flavor based on the material that it's based off of, and still be a very fun and interesting card in of itself, because it's playing with something we haven't really seen before. Usually playing with things we haven't seen before goes one of 3 ways. Either 1, it's underpowered and nobody likes it. 2, it's overpowered and it's the most broken thing ever. Or 3, it actually finds a way to hit a sweet spot because of the niche that it's actually fulfilling. So I don't know if you have any examples with Chronomon, like based on what it was doing either mechanically in the game or the lore around it. If you have anything to like flesh out that idea.
Yeah, so like in the video game, I do specifically remember you get introduced to Chronomon as its destroy mode and everything, because it's like infected. It's I don't know how you want to say it. It's been a while since I played that game, but you don't get the you have to practically defeat the destroy mode, and like I said, destroy mode was doing a lot of stunning, poisoning, paralyzing, burning, blocking off certain zones and everything too, because zones were an important thing for that game as well. So it just kind of became it's like the moment, it's like once you defeated its destroy mode, that's when the holy mode came out and everything. It's like, oh hey, thank you for rescuing me and everything. You did it. You saved the digital world. And then it's like later on, of course, after you like you're just playing the game through at the end and everything, you can kind of just go back and go, oh, you challenged me. All right, let's go ahead. and everything, and that's when you could fight the holy mode and everything. But there's not really like the destroy mode was more impactful in the game than the holy mode.
So I guess like in that aspect, because like we don't really have a whole lot of debuff. Like we do have a ton of debuffs. So like you could do something where it's just like if you're trying to make it a unique card, you could have it be like a countdown card in phases. So it's just like you could potentially have it be an egg card, where it's just like as an egg card, so whatever form you want to call that, like pre-destroy mode or whatever, it could have like a countdown type of timer where it's just like, okay, on the beginning of your first turn, you'll hatch an egg, throw it underneath, and then when the egg goes underneath, let's just say one of the opponent's Digimon gets security attack -1. And then one of them can't attack the next turn or something. Like just very stally disruptive stuff. So that way, once all of the eggs are underneath, you play a specific option card to basically move the eggs out and then go into holy mode or something. I don't know. There's different ways that you could leverage it based on the type of design that you're trying to do, because I don't remember exactly what Digimon Chronomon plays with and what are the other antagonist Digimon that are working in tandem with that, but that could be brought into like fleshing it out as a particular deck or as a particular card, because like you said, maybe it could be an alternate boss monster to Wing Guardians and Nightmare Soldiers, even though usually the families have less to do with things, and it's more of just a thematic thing, which is why most of the time they've been found in extra boosters or EX sets.
It's been a while since I played the game and everything. Like, I know there's like few mini bosses and everything you fight. It's been such a long time since I played that game, and I don't even have, like, I could try to find it online and maybe play it through that way, but Digimon World is kind of one of the weird games. It's like you kind of don't want to replay it just because of how much of a drag it is, but once you play it, it's one of those memorable games, so to say.
I mean, Digimon's always had such really good games when they're not, like, the only unfortunate thing is all Digimon games are pretty grind heavy, the vast majority of them. But yeah, like we're reaching into like, so part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because like we're going to be getting obviously sets based on video games. Obviously there's going to be a lot of speculation on what could be coming out of said video games. But like there's still a lot of IP, like their property to the IP that is fairly untapped and untouched. And it's always interesting to see what approach that they do with it, because as I like mentioned like way early on in various other podcast episodes in the early days or some of my other videos, when we were covering the TV shows, they were going by specific arcs. So like one of the arcs that we haven't even touched yet was Digimon Data Squad or Savers, the middle portion where it was the build up to Kurata being the big bad, and you had the biohybrids. So like are those could be potential cards that we eventually see where it's just like, okay, you have the tamer, and then are they going to function like hybrids or are they going to function like normal Digimon? We don't know. Because I believe the biohybrids use the DNA of pre-existing Digimon and they're not actually hybrids, but they could function like hybrids. There's a lot of different things that they could leverage based on how they want to implement that lore to be mechanically accurate to what the in-game representation is.
Yeah, because I know one deck I would have loved to cover would have been the Eaters deck and everything. Because I've played the Cyber Sleuth game so many times, but like obviously we know the Eaters is getting made, but I guess I could also mention what I would like to see from it. Because I mean, it should be no surprise, like spoilers or anything, the things I mentioned, since the game's been out for like well over 10 years. But so we do know King Drasil has like a Eaters version and everything. So what I would kind of love to see the deck do is like do a Keen Drasil egg thing, kind of like Royal Knights, and it could kind of work in the Mother sense too, but just stay in the breeding area, and then you could be kind of reducing your play costs over time with like a one-time play of an Eater, so to say, and everything. And like the Eaters, they could potentially absorb your opponent's Tamer, and your opponent could get the Tamer back once the Eater's deleted. Because if I remember correctly from Cyber Sleuth, I'm kind of doing a run through of it now. But if I remember correctly, defeating certain Eaters allows people in the comas to wake up and everything. So that kind of like works in tangent with its lore and everything. And eventually, if like enough Eaters maybe if an Eater gets destroyed, it technically goes back to the King Drasil Eater version, so to say. So you could just even do a thing where if King Drasil has enough cards in the source, it could eventually just raise up, like be allowed to move to the breeding area, and just become like your boss monster, your end game, so to say.
I see. I think that would be an interesting concept where it's just like I think like to play on that a little bit more from a mechanical standpoint. Just to kind of like translate it, it would be interesting where it's just like, yes, you have basically Eater Drasil, that's just what I'll foreshorten it. You'll have Eater Drasil be in the raising area, and then the deck, it revolves around you playing the Eater cards, and the Eater cards are designed to basically steal the opponent's Digimon and then go hide underneath your own raising area with the stolen Digimon. And I think that would be kind of cool because that would let you gain access to whatever inheritable abilities that you're stealing. Obviously, the steal would probably be just the topmost card, but if it had an inheritable ability, you might be able to have access at it, like just a generic, let's just say plus 2000 DP or something. It could be whatever. But I think that would be pretty cool. And then, like you said, once there's enough Eaters underneath, it can move out to be able to enact as the big boss monster and then have all of the abilities is eaten over the course of the game. I think that would be pretty interesting. I don't know how balanced that would be because you would have to have an Eater basically for each specific level that it's able to eat and then run away with. And then you also got to give the opponent the opportunity to fight back against the Eater to get their Digimon back. And sure, if let's just say you eat their Digimon and then they're able to get it back, then it would return to their side of the field with no inheritable abilities, which may or may not be a good thing. It all just depends. But again, I probably would make it so if they get it back, not to trigger their on-play effects. They managed to forget that on-play effects is very, like, rampant right now, and a lot of them are borderline broken, especially if you're able to re-trigger them. So yeah, maybe not giving them on play effects back would help balance the destruction of them.
Yeah, because I know you were talking about the Eaters eating Digimon, but like, absorbing Digimon, they kind of really don't do that, which is why the Digimon are so important to have, because they're the only ways to actually fight off the Eaters. Like,
yeah, I mean, they could be a tamer hate
go after like NPCs and yeah, exactly. It's more tamer kind of what they go after more people versus Digimon.
Yeah, so they could attack tamers or whatever and then delete Digimon based on the tamer that they've eaten. So it's just like, okay, if I've eaten a tamer off of, let's just say, a stronger Eater, then it would allow me to destroy a stronger Digimon. So there has to be like some sort of like push and pull dynamic to the card, and then just to be able to have them fight back, because otherwise if they're unable to interact with the opponent's Digimon at wholesale, then that's not going to lead to very engaging gameplay. Especially against decks that don't play tamers, where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm Leviamon, I don't play tamers. You're Eaters? Sure, I can't delete you because you don't have levels, but your abilities don't work because I don't have tamers. So we're even, except we're not because I'm ahead of you. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of fine tuning that would need to be done, but based on the lore, we could infer what they could potentially be doing. And this goes for all Digimon across all different medias, because as we've seen, they handle like different seasons get different abilities, and different iterations also get different abilities. So it's like this newest Marcus is actually like the Marcus we kind of wanted in a sense, where it's just like it is more direct, like doing something more directly, just like all of the other Marcuses, except it's a more aggressive styled card, whereas the other ones were more complementary to not necessarily wanting to attack outright, but just to be suspended. So, and then the option card, like it's just reference on top of reference, and that's where they probably are inspired by a lot of their abilities, which is why I have a deep appreciation for like the overarching design of Digimon, is because you actually do feel a lot of the love and care that they have translating the lore to the cards. And that's like one of the biggest appeals to Digimon as a card game and as a fan of the IP.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, it's definitely been one of uh, Digimon's strongest suits. Is trying to go and match it with the lore and everything. Because I'm trying to think, what is it? There was something like very early on that kind of like the whole hybrids mechanic. Like just even think of like hybrids and everything when they first introduced it. Hybrids like the level 4 evolving on top of the tamer and everything. Like that is so close to being like that is just in lore and everything. And even like the cross hearts and everything. You know, the whole saving under a tamer, because well, technically they actually store a lot of the Digimon in their Digivice and everything from that. So like there's a lot of things that they have done that actually makes so much sense to go with the lore.
Yeah, and I really like their implementation of the link mechanic, because I was sitting there and I was thinking, well, the way Applemon kind of showcased themselves in the show was similar enough to Cross Hearts, to where it's just like, are they just gonna have a cross, like a Digicross? And their answer was kind of, where it's just like you have the link ability, and I think like that was a good implementation of trying to figure out how to work their lore into an ability, and that to me makes it really interesting, because I'm curious to see now what are the other protagonist characters and the other Applemon are going to be doing. And it's cool that we're getting Liberator Applemon too, to further expand not only just Applemon as a whole, because like before they started doing Liberator Appmons, there was not even 100 Appmons, so they could literally burn themselves in one shot, and then they leave no room for retreads. So it's cool to see that they're treating the IP still with as much love as they had all the way at the beginning when we first started seeing them do this, because they didn't really do it until like set 5, and then set 5 is when they really started to hone in on that.
Yeah, and I think even another like from Digimon like kind of theme and lore and everything too is like it wasn't necessarily in the video game, so to say. It's just like take Machinedramon from EX01. The whole idea of tucking multiple different cyborg and like machine type Digimon underneath him and everything is because in the Digimon lore himself, he's literally just a kit bash of different Digimon components and everything. Like his arm being from Metal Greymon, his two cannons on his back from being Metal Monimon, his other arm being from like I can't think, what is that, orange flying dragon serpent looking thing, or even Bottom Jaw being Metal Tyrannomon, and his top head I think is also supposed to be from Metal Greymon too, if I remember correctly, and his like knees and everything being from Andromon. Like in EX1, like they threw in a lot of like just background lore for that Machinedramon 2 in that, and made a whole deck that actually kind of did actually see play too.
Yeah, I don't think Machinedramon would be that. I mean, he has lots of consistency issues, but I think like he's one of those cards and decks that like it's probably better than we give it credit for, but because nobody's playing it, we just don't care. And I think like that's the unfortunate reality of like having a condensed top heavy like top few decks does, is like, because I've been playing a lot of Pocket, and we're already seeing like cracks in the armor, so to speak, and pockets overarching designs, where it's just like, oh yeah, we just got ranked mode, and now that everyone's actually being sweaty, the deck diversity has gone dramatically down. And like, you'll still see like content creators like brew up some fun and interesting decks, and like every now and then like one-off decks do well in events, but again, that's like Digimon, that's not the norm. That's not always happening. Like, yes, there is a lot that is technically playable, but the majority of people are not playing it. But that's where like good design kind of entices players to want to play it. Like, even though I know apps right now out of the gate so far is doing borderline nothing and isn't exactly fully put together to be as good as some of the other meta contending decks, it still seems like a very fun and interesting deck that I would want to try. It just is unfortunate they have a secret rare that's probably going to be gatekeeping a lot of players from even wanting to try it, but I digress. It's just, I love and appreciate when the lore works its way in, and I understand that lore. And it's cool for the inverse, where it's just like, you might not have even interacted with Digimon until the card game, but if somebody helps explain to you that there's lore references everywhere, maybe that would get them excited to explore the rest of the IP past the card game.
Yeah, and even another thing too, just kind of dawned on me. Digi Panda, he even made a video about like not even just like how card mechanics work and everything, but even just the card images of how there's lore tied in with it. Because like there's I think it was like back in BT 11 where we had like a bunch of random Digimon because it was whatever that theme was supposed to be for that. But like you had like a Meramon that was cooking and everything. Like all those Digimon, like of just some Digimon like doing just normal daily activities and everything, was from the actual video game. Like they didn't have any effects related to the video games. It's just part of what they did in the game. Is kind of what Digipanda also had.
Yeah, no, there's still a lot of that going on, and it's always cool to be able to spot and point those out, especially when they become a little bit more obscure, because not everyone is always going to be well adversed in everything Digimon. Like there's still tons of Digimon content I have not even absorbed. I stayed far away from the VPETs just as an example, so I don't necessarily know a lot of VPET references that they're trying to make outside of like, oh, these Digimon came from this VPET series, therefore that's why this is the way it is. Like I could understand that baseline, but past that, I don't necessarily 100% get everything that's going to be coming from that. And then there's still tons of like manga that's currently being developed and worked on, and yeah, like the Digiwell goes deep is what I'm trying to say, and like because it is so deep, there's a lot that they still have yet to do, which is why like I would prefer, like from an investment standpoint, playing something like this over something like Dragon Ball or One Piece or some of the other IPs, because they are a little bit more limited in scope. And we've kind of already hinted on that in previous podcast episodes, where it's just like, oh yeah, they're going to have to do Luffy 25,000 because he's wearing a slightly different hat in this one episode because we ran out of Luffy's. Like, it's more limited in what it's able to do versus Digimon. Gundam seems like it's gonna have a decent breadth of like room to be able to explore, but
like there's enough out there to cycle through at least before you come back around to it. Like
right.
Gear 3 Luffy, like you can only go over Gear 3 Luffy so many times.
Yeah, and like it's cool that Digimon has a very extensive lore base on top of like the different multimedias it's been a part of to be able to explore. And I think like that's part of what makes Digimon fun, is seeing how they're going to be translating that. So like, I guess my last wish list, this is a very guilty pleasure. I know the game is not good at all. Very difficult was Digimon World 4. Digimon World 4, you really didn't digivolve at all. So like, from a card perspective, how would they handle doing and creating these Digimon World 4 Digimons? So it's just like, you get 4 base Digimon at the beginning of the game that you could choose from, and they have weapons. Well, obviously, they're not going to have weapons be their own cards. I think that would be kind of interesting, similar to like plugins or some of the other like passive abilities that we've seen in them do, like plugins, fields, and devices.
Face up security.
Yeah, so like there's a ton of different things that they could play with. So like, maybe they're a special deck where instead of traditional eggs, the weapons are eggs. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of crazy things that they could do based on what they feel like they want to do. And then you could also have like a looting mechanic, because the game was basically like a Diablo light, where it's just a big hack and slash grind fest. So there's just a lot that they can do based on how they're trying to implement this stuff, where it's just like, oh, well, how do I get this Guilmon to actually be able to be on par with mega level Digimon without making him overtly broken? And like, you could have like a weapon level up system or something. I don't know. There's tons of different ways that they could go about implementing it. But the fun part is just the exploration and experimentation on what they could possibly do based on what they've already done, and what design space is left for them to explore based on some of the stuff that they've already done.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of like the weapons being the eggs actually makes really good sense for it. I think they would even have to make a special rule to where, just theoretically speaking here, there's more than just the 5 eggs that particular deck could have. Maybe I don't know if that's too broken or something, but it's just kind of a special circumstance of a deck, because we've already seen Venmon from BT11 already be one of those first cards. Wait, no, we had Eosmon. Sorry, my bad. Eosmon from BT6 be one of those special cards where it's like, oh, you can have more than just 4 copies in your deck with this. So
yeah, it would be interesting to see how they would end up going about it in the long run. But again, that's not necessarily our job per se. It's always just fun to speculate based on the knowledge that we would have about the IP, to be able to come to a realistic conclusion on what would, could, and should be possible. Because again, not everything that they do is absolutely rock solid. Balance sometimes does come at the cost of flavor, and vice versa. As we've seen like in BT6, like, yes, the bonds were incredibly strong, but they were very flavorful and thematic. But they were incredibly strong and broken at the time. They're not nearly as broken now, but at the time they were, because that was something we didn't have the ability to react and respond to as well. And now we do. So now they're not an issue. But and then like, based on how other cards are designed to be able to handle something like what they were able to do at all the way back then. But like, coming off of BT5, like, yeah, there really wasn't that many options to be able to handle it unless you were doing it yourself. Which is where hybrids came in, and like, it always happens when they start implementing an idea, and they just need more time in the oven to cook it through, so that way it comes out a halfway decent product at the end of the day. But they sometimes are under time constraints and need to ship things out and don't have enough time to look back and test. I've been there. Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, because I think one of the decks that easily, like, you could take a look at the Nature Spirits deck and everything. Like, you know, it's a fun idea mechanic that you have and everything. But obviously, other decks that came up after that have been able to do it so much better. Like, I think the best one that out of all of them they've introduced so far has been the Deep Savers and everything.
Yeah,
That's
I
been
would
like,
agree. Deep Savers is their best family. Wing Guardians is their worst family so far.
yeah, which is really weird when you think about it, because I think nobody is like thinking. I would not have thought that there could be that what is it? The nature spirits would be better than any of the other ones, but somehow,
I think part of the
who knows?
problem with not nature spirits, with Wing Guardians is like, and why I say it's the worst is because it is one, missing pieces compared to every other one that came out at launch. They were a little bit more fleshed out. Actually had a win condition. Wing Guardians doesn't. And then they also just got more support through promos, which again just helped them, even though half the promos were pretty bad. Like, more tools in the toolbox is never a bad thing. And because Nature's is so vague, they could always add more to it, which probably is the long-term goal for them, but we haven't seen them really live up to, not really that promise, but the proposition.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking like something that could boost up the Wind Guardians would be the whole Chronomon Holy, like if they want to introduce like the Destroy mode and the Holy mode into that deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they can do. It's just whether they do it or not is the real question. And only time will tell, as we kind of have a good outlook as far as what we know is coming out in the future. We know there's video game stuff, there's a villain set, we know that Atmon's getting more support, Liberators is obviously still getting more support. So, like, there's a lot. Unfortunately, Royal Knights, because of the video games, is getting support, so... we know that Metal Empire is probably going to be the next family.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I think so. And if I'm going to take a shot in the dark, like I could even see the Royal Knights actually kind of get split up because in the in the Cyber Sleuth games, the Royal Knights kind of split into two different things, like obey King Drazel or no, we're not going to obey King Drazel, which is what Alphamon, Omnimon, Galamon were kind of doing. They were like, no, we're not going to follow King Drazel. And then you had like Dynasmon, Leopardmon, Lord Nightmon. They all kind of were followed the whole King Drazel's order.
yeah, it was loose interpretation of an order versus the literal interpretation of the order. So like those royal, like Omnimon, and Gallantmon were more loose followers, where it's just like, we're doing this to protect the digital world. This is what we think is good for it. Alphamon has always been in opposition of King Drazel. That's literally Alphamon's role, is to keep all of the other Royal Knights in check. But that's why generally, like, no, I don't agree 100% with this order. And I don't think you should follow it to the letter, because that might not be what the actual meaning is. But that's again commentary on like what Digimon means as an IP and the stories it's trying to implement and how it's utilizing its characters to tell the story. So, but that's again what makes Digimon interesting versus something like Pokemon, because Pokemon really doesn't have that great of a story. It pretends to. It likes to try. But most of the time...
Most of it's lores from the video games.
Well, it's not even just the video games. Like, I can't really sit there and say, like, any of the Pokemon games outside of Gen 5 had that riveting of a story. And the story's actually been getting weaker and worse as the games progressed ever since Gen 5. Like, Gen 6 kind of had a story. Gen 7 was awful at its story. Gen 8 and 9 borderline had no story. Like, it did, but it really didn't. It's like, Pokemon's really weird with how they handle storytelling, but again, that's not the experience you're supposed to take away from a Pokemon game. Whereas Digimon is more story-heavy and story-driven, which is what makes it interesting and why a lot of, like, people lean towards Digimon, especially in the older ages, outside of like, oh, I grew up with Pokemon, I really like it. Like, I can't sit there and say I'm not one of them, as I was literally playing Pocket, because one, Pocket's a really good card game, that, and I'm praying that the app is going to be able to be just as good and get the game to be just as good as Pocket. Like, outside of our current meta being not super great for Pocket, I think like the card design is immaculate. It's literally one of the best designed cards, like card games that I've played digitally in a very long time. But enough praising on that. It just makes me very hopeful that I want to see Digimon reach that same level of height. Maybe not that same level of greed, but the same level of height in terms of its design and quality.
Or even just getting more people to talk about it would even be great too.
Right. I got my roommate hooked on Pocket because it wasn't hard to sell him on it. Because he was already interested in Pokemon, but didn't really want to shell out thousands of dollars for the Pokemon TCG, even though decks don't cost that much. Decks in Pokemon are some of the cheapest competitive decks in any card game currently, which is weird considering booster boxes and product is very hard to come by. But again, that's just another aside for another time. But yeah, it wasn't hard getting him on Pocket because he was already interested in Pokemon, and he wanted a card game fix because he also played Magic the Gathering. So it was just like, yeah, just try this. You get 2 free packs a day, and it's super easy to pick up and play, and it's so far probably his most played game this entire year. So, not saying I'm going to convert him to do the same thing for Digimon. It very obviously seems like Digimon's trying to be a little bit more grand than just a simple pick up and play mobile game that's over in like 5 minutes. But we'll see when it comes out. I really hope it comes out sooner rather than later. Again, I think like next year is probably when it's going to come out at the earliest. I'd be shocked if it was coming out sooner. But I want it sooner, obviously.
Yeah, trust me, same. Because like I said, the sooner they introduce it, the like technically they're still going to be playing catch up, like to try to get it to current event. Like whatever they decide to do. Because what I know for a fact from what I've seen, it looks like it's definitely 1 through 6 set that they would possibly introduce right away. But as far as how fast they would introduce the other sets would be kind of the other deciding thing. Like, I don't know if they plan on doing it block-wise, but...
No, we already talked about this. What I heard is they're just going to do everything. But again, that's just rumor. Nothing's been confirmed. Obviously, they're going to want to start simple when it comes to what they're able to get into the game before they could start showcasing anything. Just because, again, the beginning of the game is always the foundation of what the game is supposed to play like. And then, obviously, it changes from there. So, we'll see. Time will tell. But that brings new lore, new Digimon, new excitement. I know it's based on Liberator, but whatever. Liberator seems like it's an okay comic. I stopped reading it. I'll have to binge it eventually. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. That's all I can really think of outside of like, let's just go over another lore reference that many people might not even understand because they might not have caught up to whatever source material I'm referencing. But yeah. Oh, that would be really cool. It just hit me. What if Nintendo Switch 2's online, the GameCube emulator gives us Digimon World 4?
Oh, that'd be funny if they did.
That would be so good. Like, if only Switch 2 so far didn't seem like it was gonna suck, but
yeah.
Yeah, so lot to be excited for, lots of new stuff happening. I think like the game's overall direction seems to be in a pretty good state. I just need them to fix and balance their game a little bit more, but that's me personally. I know plenty of people are happy with the current state of affairs. I'm just being an old guard gripe where it's just like, God, bring me back my good old days. I'm not exactly saying that, but I did, after playing in the regulation battle, I did appreciate the slower pace games where everything wasn't ballistic. There was back and forths to be had between me and my opponent. It really felt good. And I kind of hope this type of regulation battle, the common and uncommon, isn't just a one-off like a lot of their other stuff. And I think like this is just them testing the waters to see what they potentially want to do in the future as far as like what regulation battles are, what they mean, what they can do. Because I think we're like kind of not really starved, but we're like ready for a second format. But the community is just so awful at creating secondary formats that like I think one coming from Bandai that's actually going to be supported probably is the push that we all need, because no offense, we're just trying to steal other people's formats and they're not great. But
yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to even just see them do like a block format and everything too. Like, hey, we're gonna just do a block format of EX7 and upward is allowed or something like that.
That was very unpopular
cool.
the one time they tried it. It was incredibly unpopular.
Wait, they already did that?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, never mind.
They were like, oh, it's gonna be RB1 up until the new set. Like the latest set.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that was incredibly unpopular.
Well, I think what didn't help was they went, well, we're going to go ahead and add in a fewer older cards and everything, and it just kind of became confusing what older cards they did introduce, if I actually remember that one correctly.
No, I don't really remember that. It was mostly just RB1 forward, and people were just like, this is stupid, because there's a good chunk of the game that interacts specifically with older cards, and that again is like part of the problem with rotation, is like cards are very clearly not designed to be in the same set when they're designed together. But so like I feel like if Bandai really wanted to conscientiously support a secondary format, they have to fix how they design sets to be able to support that secondary format. Like right now with the commons and uncommons format, I think that's a great idea. But the way the sets have been designed really don't support that, which is the only unfortunate bit. But that's, again, part of the quirkiness of what this event is kind of showcasing, because if they were to design sets around that going forward, then we could have something a little bit better of a product when it comes to a secondary format. But it'll be interesting to see how this year plays out. Still a lot left in it and a lot of exciting stuff. I guess the positive thing to end on, just to end on a positive note, is if you have not bought the, what is it? Tamer, the Bandai Premium $200 box. I know it's $200, but that seems like it's going to be one of the most worth it things to buy on Bandai Premium. And even though it's sold out 3 times, they did bring it back, and I think as of right now, it's still up for pre-order. So you might still have time to be able to grab yours, even though it's not going to be coming out until like January of next year. You can still secure it, and it's a good product. When it comes out, it definitely is going to sell and move like hotcakes. If you do not reserve your copy, things are going to be more expensive around that. It's not going to be cheaper. I can guarantee that. So the fact that they opened it up for more pre-orders is a good thing. Shows that they're listening and they want our money. So I guess that's the best positive thing I can end on. Got any final words, Jay Stewart?
No, I mean, just kind of get ready for BT21 and the pre-releases for that, because I think that starts, technically speaking, Friday?
Yeah.
This week?
Yep. Starts like this week. Starts Friday this week. So, I did cover it in a video. Please go watch that. Right now, it is trajectorying the worst compared to all my other pre-release content. So, please watch that.
Yeah, and then, kind of like Anissa said at the beginning of the video, like, you know, give us your comments, questions. Like, let us know even what Digimon or lore you would like to see in the card game too at some point.
Yeah, no, it's always fun seeing what other people's thoughts and opinions are, because that's all we are, is just thoughts and opinions vocalized on the internet. So, with that, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and listening, especially making it all the way to the end. It really does mean the absolute world to us, knowing that you care this much about what we have to say, because, again, we're just couple of guys on the internet with our own thoughts and opinions that we're vocalizing. So thank you all again, and with that, we hope to see you in the next episode. Later.